Hello and welcome to this special broadcast with the news that the world has woken up to, at least this part of the world, India, is that Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh has been killed. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean not just for Gaza and Palestine, for the better ongoing war in Israel as well, but the global dynamics too, how they are going to get impacted? To discuss this further, allow me to welcome Mr. Atul Aneja, foreign and strategic affairs expert, and also a veteran senior journalist. Always a pleasure to speak to you, Mr. Aneja.
Welcome, Pankaj.
Thank you. Sir, looking at these scenarios evolving as of now with Ismail Haniyeh, a name that had become synonymous to, I would say, terror, quote unquote, on October 7th, when the fighters of Gaza, Hamas, launched a daring attack on Israel. And since then, things haven't been the same. In your opinion, what would be the first reaction and impression, and how would the world see it?
Well, it's a big strike, Pankaj, and I think Israel has crossed a red line today by killing Haniyeh, who in a way was the political face of Hamas, not necessarily the military one. Sinwar is the one who's leading the military side, but he was a political face of Hamas, and his killing assassination would mean that now the supporters of Hamas cannot quiet. I mean, it's a straightaway something which has happened in Tehran, and that is important because the Iranians straight away come into the picture now. So it's not only an attack on the Hamas; it's frankly an indirect attack on Iran, and that's where the escalation comes in. Because if it is the provocation to Iran, now what is Iran going to do? And it has to do something. It can't. They've come into Iran's lair and killed Hania in their protected zone. I mean, they were supposed to protect this leader. So at this time, the Iranians are will be under tremendous pressure to retaliate. Now the question is, how do they retaliate? When do they retaliate? But I think the escalation has come now, because the Iranians will do something. Whether it can come through northern Israel area, that is the Lebanese border, which is Hezbollah opening up over there. And yesterday itself, there was it's still not confirmed, but an attack on a house in southern suburbs of Beirut by Israel, which again killed a senior commander, though the Hezbollah says that he escaped. But nevertheless, that side of the border is already red hot. So what happens there? Will the Iranians come through Hezbollah, or what happens inside Gaza, Pankaj? Because you have he was a Gazan essentially. That is Ismail Haniyeh. He studied there. He grew up there. He has his nodes of influence inside Gaza. And if they're stirring inside Gaza, can we? I don't think it will be unexpected if the Israeli bombings start inside Rafah, close to the Rafah border, or throughout Gaza. And that could mean not many more civilian casualties, etc. So there are various dimensions, but I think essentially, if you see the big picture, it's Israel versus Iran at the next level, at a new level, and the escalation affecting the entire region, not just locally inside Gaza or just Israel.
Absolutely, you're right, Mr. Aneja. When we talk about this particular assault, Iran would see it as an assault on its own, land, and whether Israel would be able to be ready to be prepared for a blowback from Iran remains to be seen. Hamas, meanwhile, has said that Israel won't achieve what it desires, even after the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. So that also is a territory that is not relinquishing, that is not giving up. In your opinion, sir, when we look at this particular strike, till now we had seen the proxy war of Iran going on in Lebanon and its fighters engaging in war with Israel. We saw attacks on Golan Heights, then retaliatory attacks on Lebanese territory. Do you fear, or do you sense the role of United States too becoming stronger after this attack when Iran comes into picture more prominently?
You see, I think the green light for something like this,
Mm-hmm.
not so much in specifics, seems to have come when Netanyahu visited Washington, and
Mm-hmm.
he addressed the Congress. He met Trump. He met Biden. So you see, he met Kamala Harris. So I think
Yes.
he came back, emboldened with a line from the Americans that don't invade Lebanon after what happened at the football ground attack inside Golan Heights, which is
Mm-hmm.
attributed to Hezbollah. But
Mm-hmm.
short of that, you can go ahead. I think that seems to have been the understanding. And that's where the assassinations come in. And when you talk about Washington, yes, I think that element is there, because without that, I doubt they would have done this. And now comes the Iranian factor, the escalation to come in. I think right now there's a lot of conversations at various levels going on between Mossad and CIA, between State Department and Foreign Ministry, um, you know, the intelligence community, the militaries as well,
Mm-hmm.
about repercussions that might follow Haniyeh's killing. Iran has
Mm-hmm.
already done one missile attack, a series of missiles. Most of it did not work because of the Israeli defenses, but there were certain missiles which did go through and hit a airbase in the Negev desert, and those
Mm-hmm.
are hyper missiles. So that was a warning which came that no air defense or missile defense is going
And
to stop
protected.
such weapons. And the Iranians have actually warned that, we deliberately targeted it to a non-populated area, but we can do that to populated areas as well. So it's not that Iran is toothless right now. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, attacking a country as small as Israel
Mm-hmm.
and populated area would immediately cause, I mean, huge escalation again. But then I think
Right.
Israelis are tempting the Iranians to do that. If
Mm-hmm.
that happens, so the Americans would be very, very involved in now so-called damage control
Mm-hmm.
following what has happened by killing of Hania. And this is going to stay for some more time. Just one more point, Pankaj.
Mm-hmm.
We saw some process of de-escalation, at least hopes to that going on. The talks were going on, I think, in Egypt for the hostage deal to take place. I think that's off the radar now. The Chinese had got both the Palestinian factions, that is the Fatah and the Hamas, in Beijing to get
Yes.
them together
Yes.
for some with the possibility of a reconciliation dialogue or negotiations. So I think
Mm-hmm.
with these attacks, I think Israel and Netanyahu has made up it. I mean, has sent that message that we will not go
Mm-hmm.
for talks. We are not going
Right.
for talks, and we are going for this ultimate option of erasing Hamas
Right.
from Gaza, and we are striking their leadership. So it's that particular process seems to have also been killed with the killing of
Mm-hmm.
with
Right.
Hania. And
Absolutely.
repercussions. Yeah,
Mhm.
go ahead.
Right. Right, sir. Indeed, indeed. Well received. One final question, sir. I mean, if I have to, not at the cost of either militarizing the whole situation or sensitizing or trying to boost it here, but remember the times of 1913, 1914, when the world was at the brink of World War, but there was one trigger, the killing of Archduke Ferdinand. That parallel is being drawn by several international media as we speak, that this could be one of, because as you rightly mentioned, the kind of figure Ismail Haniyeh was, at least revered in Gaza, now involving Iran. In this sort of possibilities, because with a war going on between Russia and Ukraine as well, and now in the Middle East, this sort of dynamics, do you think Iran would be weighing on these options also before thinking of anything, before striking back?
No, because Iran is not strong enough right now. I mean, if it
Okay.
is a one-on-one between Israel and Iran, the asymmetry is still there between
Mm-hmm.
Israel speaking. So this can come in only if Iran has a green light from the Russians, let's say, or from the Chinese, that they are going to
Okay.
back them up. And then they will be emboldened to do something and escalate it big time. Right now, that's not coming. You see, the Russians are involved in Ukraine. Unless that war winds up, the Russians won't have enough wherewithal to divert it here. So that I do not see and the Israelis would have calculated that before going in for this. So that scenario of Archduke Ferdinand and that being the trigger, I don't think is there because the back alliances are not there. I mean, the Israelis may have, and then again, America going inside into their election mode. And there are strong Palestinian factions and supporters as well. And beyond a point, they cannot alienate them, especially the Democrats can't alienate them. And Trump may take a certain position. So there will also be exercise some constraint on Israel not to go aboard. So I don't think it's going to trigger into that. But now comes the proxies will come into picture. The Hezbollah will come into the picture. Because this is also assassinations, terror. It's not full-scale wars which are going on.
Right.
And then you're going to see the Houthis. I think the Suez Canal, we're going to watch that space. What happened to international shipping? How are they going to respond to that? So I think this is still through. And then we're going to have the stock markets reacting to this development. I don't know what the price of oil would be after what has happened. Energy security into picture over there. So it's still going to be war by escalated war through proxies.
Right. Mr. Oneindia, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed and putting things into perspective as far as the assassination, the killing of Ismail Haniyeh is concerned, the Hamas chief, and we really appreciate your inputs here. We hope to have you more on Oneindia also. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Pankaj.
Hello and welcome to this special broadcast on Oneindia. As we all know, as India and rest of the world woke up to the news of the assassination of Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh. That is something that has thrown all the questions into tizzy. To discuss that further and beyond the situation, Dr. Nimrod Goren, Senior Fellow for Israeli Affairs, Middle East Institute, joins us. Dr. Goren, thank you so much for speaking to Oneindia once again, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Dr. Goren, what changes from now on? Is this victory for Israel? Is this a wound on Hamas that it will fight back and come up with a counter-strike? Or where is Iran? How does Iran react to it?
It's a major event. It came as a surprise to many in Israel because all attention in Israel was basically given to Lebanon and Hezbollah. And what happened just a few hours before that, in which one of maybe the top military commander within Hezbollah was also killed in an Israeli strike. So having those two events happen within the same night is something that is a really major event that will have consequences. There will be short-term and long-term. In the long term, it does impact Hamas political power. And one of the goals of the war in Gaza for Israel was not only eliminating Hamas military power, but also making sure that Hamas' ability to govern Gaza or Palestinian politics will be damaged. So that is one aspect of that. And there is the short-term aspect in which there may be a retaliation, whether Hamas, Hezbollah, both of them. So Israel is kind of taking a step back and waiting to see what will happen today, tomorrow, taking precautions, but people are very tense and are not sure where this will lead to in the immediate term.
Right. Dr. Goren, for Israel to commit to take such a step, if we may say Israel as of now, but do you think that several other factors would have also been taken into consideration, like the support of United States? Because this is not just about attacking Hamas leader. It's attacking Hamas leader on Iranian soil. So that puts into a different perspective. So U.S. role, where do you see U.S. role in it?
So first on Hamas, on Haniyeh, unlike the Hezbollah attack, Israel did not take responsibility until now. So there is no formal Israeli reaction. I think all of those observing it are likely thinking that it was an Israeli action, and that's reasonable, but there was no official taking of responsibility. It may happen later on, but until now, that's not the case. I guess that such an operation must have some coordination with the U.S. administration, not necessarily in the specifics of timing and location, but in the principal aspect of things. And we heard already yesterday, after the attack on Beirut, that the American leadership committed to Israel's right to self-defense. So I think here again, the way the Hamas is being perceived in the U.S. is one that will maybe legitimize the Israeli actions or understand the causes for that. It's not by chance, for example, that it did not take place in Doha, where Haniyeh spends most of his time, neither in Turkey, where he was also spending lots of time after October 7. Israel chose to operate in a space in which the fallback, the diplomatic fallback, would be much less significant than on the other countries. And I guess that also takes into account American interests in the region.
Right, sir. Since you have stayed in that region, you follow the geopolitics also of this whole Israel, Lebanon, Palestine, and Iranian topography. How wrong would I be, Dr. Goren, to just imagine and think that this piece of news could be fake also, if I may stick my neck out here, because Ismail Haniyeh, he had, Israel was on a hot pursuit. We have seen other organizations' leaders also dying many times. They resurface, they die again. Is there, because IRG and Hamas were quick to respond to it, saying, yes, he has been eliminated. I mean, this was too good to be believed.
Yeah, of course, in the Middle East, things are happening in all kinds of ways. So you never know, and people are always thinking of what's really happening and where's the fake news and the misinformation. Looking at it analytically, I think that if the scenario that you're mentioning, as if this didn't really happen, was the case, we would have gotten some indication on that. First, the method in which he was supposedly killed by a rocket that was directed at his room is not a quiet operation. So if that happened, that's visible. You have signs of that. It's something people see. It's not like a quiet operation within an hotel room, like happens in other instances. So people know about it when it's happening. And then, although Israel is not taking responsibility for anything, I guess that if this didn't really happen, you would have all kind of leaks through international media or other sources indicating that. So the fact that we are already several hours in and that did not happen increases the chances that this is a true story. But of course, the day is just unfolding, so we'll have to wait a few hours and see the whole picture.
Dr. Goren, one final question. We spoke in the times when the war had just started, I distinctly remember, and now almost a year now, come October, in 2-3 months' time. Is this attack or this assassination any kind of victory for Israel? Can Israel afford to see it like a victory, like an achievement?
First, it's a really long time that this war is taking place. We're talking about a long period of several months in which not only people are fighting, but people are dying and hostages are kept. And it really impacts the daily life, both of Israelis and Palestinians. So the damage is kind of accumulating. I think for Israel, the assassination of Hamas leadership is an achievement, but it's not a victory, because the victory from an Israeli perspective is to free the hostages, first and foremost. We have 115 people still held in Gaza by Hamas, and for the Israeli society, before these people come home, you cannot declare victory. For a majority, about 70% of Israelis now prefer a deal for release the hostages on the continuation of the war. They are willing to stop the war in the current format of it, just to have the people back home. So I think that's what Israelis are looking for, is the return of the hostages. It's creating the sense of security so people can go back to live in those communities close to the Gaza border. And the way to deal with that is eventually diplomatic. So there is a deal on the table, a ceasefire deal, a hostage release deal that President Biden endorses. Such a deal is supposed to also help diffuse tensions between Israel and Hezbollah. The Americans also want to see that leverage into Israeli-Saudi normalization. So there is a big package on the table, but the current Israeli leadership rejects that. And I think that's something that leads to a lot of domestic problems in Israel within the political space.
Absolutely nicely put there. Dr. Nimrod Goren, Senior Fellow for Israeli Affairs, Middle East Institute. Thank you so much, sir, for taking time out this morning amid your busy schedule.
Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome. This is me, Ansh Pandey on Oneindia English. And right now, when we are talking, a massive development has taken place inside right now in the Israel-Gaza war. Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas's political wing, has been declared dead. The incident took place at around 2 a.m. in midnight local time in Iran, And after that, the social media is filled with responses right now that Haniyeh is dead, and various political meetings are taking place. Iran right now, Khamenei has issued a statement, IRGC has issued a statement. Talking of Netanyahu right now, he's going to take a cabinet meeting, and he's probably also going to address the nation on the development. But is Haniyeh really dead? For that to talk and to understand why did it matter, we have got Mr. Alexander Greenberg from the JISS Institute with us to talk on the issue. He is a famous, renowned Iranian expert on the issue. Mr. Greenberg, welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me. Yes, it's a big event. Of course, I think that he's dead as long as we don't hear any opposite. And judging by the fact that most Arab channels do refer to him as the Shaheed, the martyr Haniyeh, so he's dead. And Iran condemned the treacherous Zionist strike, etc., etc. So I believe he's dead. And it was very important because he was Haniyeh, as other Hamas leadership, were certain to be safe in Tehran. No, it's not safe. And of course, it's a clear message to anyone within Iranian leadership that had it been decided otherwise by Israeli leadership, any other person among Iran leaders could have been the crosshairs of Israeli missiles. And I must say, I saw a lot of joy of Iranian people who use the hashtag kotlet, meaning kebab or like meatball, to refer to all the victims, terrorist victims of Israeli or American airstrikes.
Okay, now, okay. I mean, sir, if this has happened, indeed it is a big development. Sir, given Ismail Haniyeh's influential position as a leader, definitely he was the leader of Hamas's political wing. So why do you think, if Iran has targeted, why is it so specifically only him? And what was the exact reason that his elimination was a priority for Israel?
I don't know the details because I has never been a fly in the cup or on the wall of what's going on inside Tehran. But in principle, the operations of this kind are always prepared in function of feasibility and possibility. I cannot say that Haniyeh is the main target. Sinwar, who is still alive, who still withholds our hostages, he is the main priority. But once, in general, across the world, once you have a possibility to do that, so do that. And of course, it is important that each one of these criminal coterie knows that even after many years, no matter where they are, who they are, they will be found and they will pay for their crimes. And of course, again, it's very important for Iranian people because the regime clearly realizes that most Iranian people despise their regime and the criminals he hosts. In general, to suppose that Iran would sacrifice anything for the Palestinians and the Arabs, given the disdain for the Arabs from the part of the Iranians. So it's, I think it's far-fetched, but of course everyone must be vigilant and not to delve into nonchalance and indifference.
Definitely. Mr. Alexander, what is the most shocking thing in all these development is one thing that Haniyeh is assassinated, or what we say killed, on Iranian soil. Now, it is a known thing that Haniyeh has had close connections with Iranian leadership, be it the supreme leader, be it the former president. But this specific assassination is also raising question on Iranians. Why do I say so, sir? Definitely because if we see for the last few months, if you also remember, just a few months ago, it was Israel directly attacked Iran. And then after that, Iran also retaliated for that. And now this attack, if Israel has carried out, does this also raise this question on the internal security of Iran, that how did they let this happen?
Yes, look, there it proves again, first of all, the highest skills of Israeli intelligence. It also, as far as I know, it was technically conducted through missiles and planes without implicating human agents in Tehran. But I believe, in general, to find a target, you must have human agents. It's again another message for the regime, because the regime, what does it mean? It means that many Iranians are ready to work with the Mossad, with CIA, with I don't know with whom, just to get rid of their own oppressors. And again, the regime is vulnerable. Iran is in love with its own Iranian regime, not the Iranian people, is in love with its own regime, that they're a original superpower, but in fact, they're a rotten regime whose only might is confined to asymmetrical warfare, terrorism, and missiles and drones. By this reason, I think they despise the Pakistanis, but they forget that the Pakistanis studied at Oxford and Cambridge, and they have a bomb, and the Iranians studied at the Shahid Beheshti University. With all due respect, it's not Oxbridge to manufacture nukes.
Definitely. Sir, just one more question. I think we also need to talk about that. So there's actually a very unusual aspect right here. Haniyeh has been declared dead. Some reports are claiming that it was a missile strike. Some are claiming that it was a raid at his hotel room where he was staying. But despite all this, there is still no social, there are no visuals on social media till now. So does this raise any sort of suspicion, at least in your mind, that could it be a camouflage of some sort of something, or Iran is simply choosing not to highlight this issue because it is then definitely going to highlight its failure across the world?
I think, yes, you're right. Look, the Iranians are very smart and rational. The last thing you can say about this regime that they're crazy or irrational. They're not. And of course, yes, the more you circulate the issue and the more you threaten someone, the more you block yourself, because la noblesse oblige, and you are obligated to. So I don't think they want to cabal themselves with obligations to take revenge, because it is the Palestinians who are not their priority. Hezbollah may be something different, but again, the assessment says that Hezbollah and Iran don't want major escalation. But again, I say it with some reservations. Of course, I'm not a prophet. I don't say I know they won't do that. I don't know, but it seems that judging by the events, they are not interested in further escalation.
So just one last question. Sir, do you see now another chapter now breaking out in the Israel-Gaza conflict after this war, after this attack specifically? Now, this clearly also means that Israel is now probably all set. Now they can also attack Yahya after this. Even I think even after Hassan Nasrallah is also not safe if we go by this. So do you see the resistance movement, whether it's Yemen, whether it's Lebanon, whether it's Iraq for the matter, do you see now they also changing their strategy owing to this development?
I think one shouldn't distinguish between Hezbollah, which is a diamond in the crown of the axis of resistance, so Iranians won't sacrifice it easily. So they know, Israel is also Israeli leadership fears a major war, but again, the war is ongoing. It's not that we should never forget that it's not that if we were not in war now. There is war, and people in the north, the displaced people in Israel will never be ready to get back to their homes if the normalcy means seeing again Hezbollah on the border. It's impossible, but I don't know how one can achieve that without a war. On the other side, Houthis are nothing for Iran. They pay them very little money, and the Iranians don't care if thousands of Yemenites die. And the fact is that neither America and the UK and Israel cannot stop the Houthi attacks. Of course, they're not as strategic as Hezbollah, but we prefer for the moment to deal with the errand boy and not with the big boss. So it will continue, I believe.
Okay, so as per your assessment, what I see is that Hezbollah may not go to the extent of retaliating so big if any sort of that thing happens. Is that so?
Yes, I would fear Iranian terrorist attacks against Jewish and Israeli targets across the world as they used to do. So there is noteworthy the terrible bombing of Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires in '92, and also the AMIA Jewish community building also in Buenos Aires in '94, and all the terrorist attacks that they may conduct through networks of Hezbollah in Africa and South America. This is always possible. But again, Iran, if you do something immediately, for example, tomorrow they bomb Israeli embassy somewhere, so this link will be too obvious. Iranians also prefer to hide the tracks so that it is not so as obvious as is not just as if we may compare the Indian example. So your country also suffers terrorism. So we all know that Lashkar-e-Taiba is funded and guided by ISI, by Pakistan, but they don't do it overtly.
Okay. Mr. Alexander, firstly, a big thank you for your precious time on this interview.
Thank you.
These were some very major questions that were being asked on social media, and I thought that actually our team also thought that no one can be more better expert than you to talk on this matter. So yeah, once again, sir, a very big thank you for this interview, and I believe the more this situation get developed, we'll talk even more in the future regarding these developments. So yeah, once again, sir, a big thank you for this interview.
Dhanyavad, bahut shukriya. Thank you.
Dhanyavad, sir. Dhanyavad. Thank you, sir.
I think the timing, the place, and the region is already on boiling pot. He's sitting in office. He is not willing to have end to this war, and I think that is a sabotage, and that will bring the region into a war. Hamas is an ideology. It's a resistance force. 1987 was established by the Israelis themselves.
Hello and welcome to this special broadcast on news that broke out this Wednesday morning, that Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas chief, was killed in Iran, and that too under the gaze of the world spotlight. Dr. Wael Awad, West Asia strategist, joins us on the broadcast to decode. Dr. Awad, thank you so much for speaking to One India. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Awad, first things first, a lot of repercussions, at least I would say 12 hours have passed now since the news broke. How has been the reaction, first of all? And secondly, where do you see this particular incident leading the whole Israel, Lebanon, Iran conflict going, sir?
Thank you. I think the war on Gaza, on Palestine also is on for the last 297 days, and there is no end to it. So therefore, the military solution has not been successful for the Israelis anywhere in the front there. They only succeeded in destroying the building, the hospitals, the schools, the killing of more than 100,000 people killed and injured, and more than 10,000 is missing. So therefore, we need to see the situation on the military front is falling all apart, because Israel also internal pressure on the Prime Minister of Israel is piling up, and they wanted a political solution to this crisis so they can get their prisoners out of the Hamas hands. So, but now you're killing the chief negotiators who has been on the table, so trying to find a solution for you. You tracked him from Qatar. You followed him till he went to Iran, and then you attack him. I think the timing, the place, and the region is already on boiling pot. So you have choose the time where you wanted this war to be more widening, because you failed to drag the United States into a war with Iran. And when Iran retaliated against the killing of their diplomat in Damascus, you remember. Right. Now Netanyahu comes back from Washington, D.C., and with the intention of widening this war, because first of all, He wanted the Trump to come back. He is very much against Kamala Harris. Therefore, he wanted to make sure that the success of Trump can only be done if the war is widening and if America gets involved.
All right. So now, obviously, the role of United States is something that not many experts, just as you, also have not denied it. Also, but Benjamin Netanyahu's own ambitions, and to strike it where it hurts the most. Do you see this as a victory or an achievement for Netanyahu, or is this a setback in itself on the bigger picture?
I think it is a setback because he's shooting his own feet. There's no question that he is going to gain anything by you killing a political leader or using a kind of a terrorist kind of an attack, whether it is on Iran soil, whether it is against the Hezbollah leaders inside Lebanon. There are terms and conditions they have set up, unwritten condition between Israel and the resistance forces in Lebanon, not to attack civilian targets. So you are choosing a civilian target as much as you're choosing a civilian target in Palestine. So what kind of achievement do you have? I think he will survive only as long as the war prolongs. And prolongation of the war serves his objective, because even in his government coalition, it's very weak. Even today, I mean, look at the news in Israel when they are military officers have been accused of raping prisoners, Palestinian prisoners. And the whole world is watching how they barge into the building to storm the right-wing Jewish to release them. And now they are released from the prison. These are Israelis among Israelis. So what do you expect from a prime minister who is not even interested in any peace deal? When he go to the Congress in the United States and speak that he wanted to finish Hamas, he wanted to destroy the infrastructure of the Palestinians, he have no intention of ending this war. So he put impossible conditions in the negotiating table, and he put pressure through the American on Qatar and on Turkey, on the Egyptian, but nothing happening. So going and killing unilateral actions, exceptionalism does not solve the problem, because the existence of Israel is as much as equal to the existence of Hamas. Hamas is an ideology. It's a resistance force. 1987 was established by the Israelis themselves, who have given the blessing. Even Netanyahu himself, there is a case against him. You know, there's a case against him inside Israel that he made $50 million out of the $200 million he gave to Hamas from Qatar. So if these issues are alive in Israel, so it clearly shows that the gentleman is sitting in the office. He is not willing to have end to this war. And I think that is a sabotage, and that will bring the region into a war with unforgettable, because there will be lots of involvement in that region. There will be effect on the global peace and security.
Absolutely, Dr. Awad. And this brings me to the final question. I know the time is of essence on your side. And this particular attack on Iranian soil, and especially with the fact that what has been happening between Israel and the offshoot of Iranian support, say the Hezbollah in Lebanon, or for that matter, what happened in Beirut yesterday, they killed a company commander there also, Israel. Do you think that this particular incident might have rubbed Iran the wrong way completely, and a retaliation is feared now from Iran to Israel directly?
Well, he wanted the retaliation. That's why he attacked inside Iran. I mean, he could do anything against Ismail Haniyeh anywhere. But why he chose Iran?
Yes.
Choosing of Iran is exactly, they wanted the provocation. And this provocation has been happening now, because Iran has already raised the red flag on the mosque of Qum and most of the mosque in Iran, which is a clear indication that we have to take a revenge. And even the supreme leader of Iran have already made it very clear. You attacked our soil, you attacked our guest. He's a political figure. He was democratically elected in Palestine, the only prime minister or president elected democratically in 2006, by the way. And you get rid of him in different soil. So I think there is something the whole international community has to understand this, that this war cannot continue for endless. There's an end game to each war, and war cannot achieve peace. If you want peace in this region, withdraw from the occupied territories, give the Palestinians the right of existence side by side by the Israelis, and continuity of a provocative measure for perpetual wars does not solve the problem, nor we are going to live in peace as long as it's a war going on. And I think it's becoming an extensional war, either the Arabs in this region or the Israelis.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Awad, thank you so much. You know, no matter Benjamin Netanyahu has returned from United States, what kind of message he carries, We don't know as of now, but even US has to fight an election, and it would want to steer clear of any war as of now. How did Benjamin Netanyahu arrive at this decision to fire at Iran? Only time will tell. Meanwhile, Dr. Awad, thank you so much for speaking to One India.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Nice talking to you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to this special broadcast on One India. In the series of interviews that we are doing on One India as the fallout or the impact, the likely impact of the assassination of Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh, not in Palestine, not in Gaza, but outside of its borders in Iran. Today, we are joined by Professor Hussein Bagchi. He is the co-founder of Ankara Global Advisory Group. Professor Bagchi, thank you so much for speaking to One India, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor Saab, the first question that I want to ask you is the very basic question. What could be the possible motives behind the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Iran?
Actually, this type of political assassinations conducted by Israeli intelligence service has been not new. The difference is, as you rightly pointed out, it is outside of the Palestine territory. It is in Iran, and it is a very directly targeted attack. And his killing is, of course, a big blow to Hamas in general, because he was one of the prime ministers, negotiator, one of the international personalities of Hamas, who was also very much welcomed in Turkey by the Turkish government so many times. And this is another situation now that Israel probably will conduct further this type of attacks or assassinations for the other political leaders, as far as they have the opportunity. I think when Prime Minister Netanyahu visited America last week and he came back, and probably he was getting the gift, I would say, the support of American administration go ahead, because he was talking not only to President and Deputy President, Vice President, but also candidate Donald Trump, and he was receiving a big ovation in the Congress. He was, from his body language point of view, very happy there. And when he returned back, he got directly his cabinet and decided probably to attack also Lebanon and now this political assassination. It is, of course, for Israel, concerning the Israeli population and people, is a very high increasing moral now that their people can do fight, and the government is behind it to punish, if you want, the 7th October attack of Hamas. But there is a problem. Netanyahu is like somebody who has no stock in the hand in a village where there are a lot of dogs. So he's not having any reactions, neither by the Arab League nor by any other people there. And Turkey and Iran are mostly the two countries which make a lot of noise, but no thunder, no rain. Yeah, so a lot of noise, but they cannot so far attack Israel because of this. Condemnation will be the case. Moral condemnation, political condemnation, diplomatic condemnation will be there, but to declare the war to Israel means declaring the war to America, NATO, and the European Union. As the American Defense Minister Austin stated, if Israel is attacked, we will support. This is the signal to those countries who are important in the region, but at the same I'm talking here the Arab countries, Gulf countries in general, and we know that the Gulf countries do not want to get any organized, militarily organized groups, non-state actors in the Middle East. Hamas, Hezbollah, and groups they don't like. So why? Because Middle East, if there is a cooperation between Arab countries and Israel, like the Abraham Accords, then there should be no this type of disturbances in economic political terms. So I think whatever it is, the assassination of Haniyeh is a big event within the Gaza conflict since October 7th.
October 7th. Indeed, indeed. Professor Bagchi, you mentioned that after the return of Benjamin Netanyahu from United States, he possibly carried out that attack, and others also. There was one attack in Beirut also. To implicate Israel as of now for this assassination, what could be the ramifications first? And secondly, how importantly or how convincingly do you believe that a United States, which is going to elections, would any candidate, either Democrat or Republican, would risk his candidature of possibly getting into another war?
First of all, I don't think there will be a war. The second one, two countries in their, not constitution, but in their raison d'etre, are obliged to help to Israel. This is the United States of America, and this is the Germany. So these two countries are the, in quotation, natural protectors of the state of Israel. Okay. And then maybe the other European countries, Great Britain included. But these two countries are crucial ones. And I think the American presidential candidates, they know exactly if they would have any statements against Israel or Israel-related political issues, they don't have any chance to win the elections in America. This is another political reality. So even candidate Kamala Harris, just last week, she started her speech, Hamas is a terror organization. It is exactly what the Israelis wanted to hear. Whereas for other countries like Turkey, for example, Hamas is not a terror organization. So these differences will continue, but maybe in this respect, I may tell you what I talked to Turkish press and newspapers. The Gaza issue is evolving to a non-Arab issue. Since very beginning, since 1948, it was Arab-Israeli conflict. We all know the history, like Anwar Sadat's Israel's policy, land for peace or peace for land policy, and he was assassinated by Muslim brothers, as we know. It is very difficult to get peace in the Middle East. But these two countries, Turkey and Iran, are non-Arab countries. And suddenly, these two countries appear as the national protector of Gaza issue or Hamas supporters. This is a very dangerous, I would say, evolvement because Iran and Turkey, two neighbors, important concerning the Jerusalem and, of course, Palestine issue, always supported. Turkey is the one since 1979 as a Palestinian embassy in Ankara. But the problem is here how Iran and Turkey will react now to Israeli position. I understand that Iran supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, fine. But I do not think that Iran would enter into war with Israel for two reasons. One, in the history, it has never been the case, and Ahmadinejad stated just today that they supported the occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan and supported America. So this type of statement suddenly comes and it creates a new political environment. I do not expect that America and Iran will fight. It is not at the moment possible. Concerning Turkey, the Turkish policy from the very beginning was on the side of Hamas, which created also a lot of discussion in the Turkish public, in the mainstream discussion. And the president's statements just a couple of days ago where I commented also several times to different news televisions. I think it was meant not attack Israel, but in the long run, how to fight Israel. Turkey and Israel actually had the best relations in the past. Until last September, Netanyahu was on the way to come to Turkey to visit before 7th of October. So the Turkish-Israeli relations have been troublesome, but last year and the year before, the Israeli president came to Turkey, and everything was just going on with this Abraham Accords. Turkey was turning the policy not to be against Israel, but to cooperate with Israel. Now, the verbal confrontation between the foreign ministries of the of two sides, I find it childish. That one is talking like Saddam Hussein, Portugal, and the other one, Turkish foreign ministry. Never ever Turkish foreign ministry stated like this to compare Netanyahu as Hitler. I mean, this type of verbal accusation mostly for domestic consumption. So I think both sides, Netanyahu and Erdogan, in all those years, they were facing each other, but making, if you want, positive results in the elections.
Absolutely, Professor. A lot changed. You're right. Not just in September, October of 2023, but also even during the time of 2015, when there was churn in Turkish politics, when President Erdogan gave more powers to the president and prime ministerial powers were curtailed. That was also a time when all this migrant crisis was going on. Turkey was facing the heat from Syrian border. There was a war also going on, the red zone issue, and then the Israeli support to the other factions. So nonetheless, coming back to Turkey, Professor, and this would be the last question. I don't want to keep you busy on your holiday also. Given Turkey's strong response to the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, the journalist, in 2018, I presume, in the Saudi Arabian embassy in Istanbul, how do you think Turkey might respond to the killing of Ismail Haniyeh in Iran, outside his own country's borders? And what parallels, if you may share with us, can be drawn between these two incidents, Professor?
Interesting comparison, first of all, and good question. One of the issues, it was the Saudi Arabian consulate in Istanbul, where Jamal Khashoggi was killed. It was perfectly organized, like Hollywood film organized. Turkey condemned, like many other countries, of course, this. But at the end of the day, President Erdogan turned his policy from unfriendly relations to now brotherly relations. So this is something which we have sometimes difficulties to analyze and compare, because President Erdogan's policy is very strongly polarizing, but then is like a boomerang coming back, and as if nothing happened before, he continue the relations. It is very pragmatic, I would say, political animal in political terms. I do not expect that for Haniyeh it will be the same, because Haniyeh is not the state representative. I mean, Hamas does not represent a state, first of all. But the Turkish concern, president's concern, is much more ideological in this respect. And this ideological rapprochement, starting with the Arab Spring, continues. And I think he never given up. He has never given up his position concerning the Hamas. But he knows technically and practically that he cannot do anything against Israel in this sense, militarily. I mean, verbal attacks will be there, but if there are some developments in future, a new Gaza, a new, let's say, political environment, probably Turkey will further continue to have good relations with Israel. If President Erdogan is out of office and then replaced by another one, not from his party, but from the opposition, probably the Turkish-Israeli relations will be faster, much better than it would be the case for AKP political leadership.
Right. The AKP, from which President Erdogan comes, the AK party, as they call it.
Yes.
Professor Hussein Bakshi, thank you so much. This is the time when I say tamam here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. We were speaking to Professor Hussein Bakshi, and he is the co-founder of Ankara Global Advisory Group. Thank you so much, sir. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to this very special broadcast on One India in the series, as mentioned earlier, of getting you the voices from all stakeholders in this war that is unfolding between Israel and Hamas initially, then roped in Hezbollah to Iran, Lebanon, and the wider network of United States, and just a matter of time when we will see maybe some Russian and Chinese role also creeping in. To discuss the matters further in light of the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, it's my pleasure today to be joined by Irina Sukerman. She is a U.S. National Security and Geopolitical Analyst, also a fellow at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs and a fellow at the Arabian Peninsula Institute. Irina joins us from all the way from New York. Hello there, Irina. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you, Irina, for taking time out. Irina, first things first, given the recent assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, what are the strategic implications of his death for Hamas and the broader Palestinian movement?
Well, his death is a huge blow for a number of reasons. First of all, he was considered a political leader of the movement, and in that capacity, he brought the international legitimacy to what is otherwise considered to be a terrorist organization by many countries, from the United States to some of the Middle Eastern stakeholders. And we see that from the reaction from British media such as the BBC and other international media. They mourned his death as if he were a legitimate political leader due to the fact that he was successfully able to present this very smooth image of someone who heads negotiations over the hostages, who travels and meets with leaders from countries like Iran, currently playing a major role in the Middle East. At the same time, however, let's not forget that this billionaire was also someone responsible for the very crisis that he's now negotiating. He was now negotiating. He was the one who ordered the October 7th attack, which created the hostage crisis. He became a billionaire by virtue of stealing billions in humanitarian aid from Palestinians, and regardless of the fact of how he was, Hamas was elected into power, arguably by murdering parts of the opposition in Gaza. He certainly lost a great deal of political legitimacy, even if there was some to begin with. So now we are facing a major crisis because, first of all, the question is who is going to step into his shoes, and does it really matter? Because by assassinating this symbolic individual who up until this point was enjoying a relative diplomatic immunity, there's a very strong message that Hamas is back to being treated like a terrorist organization and not a political movement, not a government of Gaza. And so so nobody is safe. Nobody there's no holds barred, and anyone can be assassinated and killed just as Haniyeh, particularly if they refuse to cooperate and continue playing games over hostages, threatening regional security, and otherwise acting outside any sort of political legitimacy. It's also a symbol of weakness a signal of weakness to both Hamas and Iran, which could not keep its guests safe even within its borders. So if Haniyeh is not safe while visiting a presidential inauguration, who then is? What could happen to Iranian military leaders or officials if with this level of precision, Haniyeh could be liquidated inside Iran? So that also brings a question: just how much Hamas can actually continue moving forward if their leadership in Doha is being taken out? Yes, all of these people can ultimately be replaced, but if they're being replaced as soon as they're killed, then there is no continuity, there's no consolidation of power, there's no trust, and it's very difficult to keep networks running if your top leadership is getting killed. So now Hamas is threatening retaliation in Israel within hours, according to a Hamas spokesman, but their activity inside Gaza is limited because they no longer have access to Rafah and to the tunnels. They can no longer bring in new weapons. So what they can do is continue insurgency with what they have. They can continue insurgency inside the West Bank, where they've established a growing presence, and they can act in conjunction with other proxies outside Gaza.
Right, Irina. Coming to the point when you mentioned that, Ismail Haniyeh being killed in Iran, unsafe there. This is a plot which many are saying that because of this kind of inter-country attack, where one country is attacking the other one, there are allegations suggesting a possible United States hand in the assassination of Haniyeh. So based on your analysis, Irina, how plausible is it that the US was involved? And what would be the strategic motivation behind such an involvement, if there is any, from United States?
I think this particular administration was genuinely dedicated to a diplomatic solution with Hamas. And we can see that from their most recent statements, from the State Department push and pressure on Netanyahu to continue negotiating, and from the recent apparent diplomatic success, which stalled over military ramifications of Israel's potential withdrawal from Rafah, to which both sides could not agree. But we can see even from Blinken's statement to the Emir of Qatar following Haniyeh's assassination that US is continuing to treat these talks as legitimate and still continues to give deference to Hamas as a potential negotiating partner. So I don't really think that US was directly involved. Did they have some knowledge of what was about to transpire? If they didn't, then our intelligence is not doing its job. Can they necessarily prevent Israel from taking out an internationally recognized terrorist outside the territory where US has its base? Not necessarily, especially since there's no reason for them not to do that. There's been a recent escalation of activity, which is a threat to US interests in the region. So it's in US interest if there is very strong deterrence that is also, according to this administration, does not directly involve attacking Iran itself. And it hasn't. This was a Hamas terrorist that was liquidated, and it's not like there is a signature on who exactly did it.
Right. Given the recent visit of Benjamin Netanyahu to United States, how might Prime Minister Netanyahu be leveraging the US-Israel relationship to further his own political and security objectives, like the one fighting Hamas, particularly in light of the recent developments with Iran as well? Irina?
Well, I think any leader, especially in the middle of a war, will be using and leveraging any relations he has in order to achieve security for its people. Netanyahu, you can say, is also using it to stay in power and to retain legitimacy despite a domestic political crisis. But let's face it, the situation in the US is far from clear. We don't have a clear plan from either of the leading candidates over their plans for the Middle East. Neither Trump nor Kamala Harris have articulated the specific measures they would take to bring this crisis to an end. Meanwhile, Biden's seemingly sudden departure threw the ongoing plans into chaos because the Biden administration, for all intents and purposes, is a sitting duck. Once the president announces he's no longer in the running, his officials are not likely to be listened to. So in terms of trying to get something out of this administration, I think for Netanyahu, there's not much either way. It's very obvious that until after the elections, nothing serious will be undertaken, and this administration will just try to avoid a major escalation with the means available as much as possible. I think the purpose of the visit was to feel out the intentions of the other candidates and to see what sort of support can be reached with Congress, which also is facing a re-election for the most part.
Both Congress and Republicans and Democrats, Benjamin Netanyahu actually met both of them just to make sure whoever comes into power, is on the right side of the things. One final question, Irina. Considering the secrecy and lack of transparency surrounding the details of Haniyeh's assassination, what might be the reason behind this, and how does it compare to other similar incidents in terms of geopolitical strategy, media management? How is Iran going to convince the world that, yes, Israel came in and attacked this particular place and killed Haniyeh?
Well, I think the question is who had the means, the motive, and the opportunity. Quite frankly, that's a number of actors, but only two can be taken seriously because only two have been involved in any sorts of major operations. In the past, U.S. liquidated Qasem Soleimani, dealing a major blow to Iranian operations, but that happened in Iraq, not in Iran. U.S. has not attacked Iran or anyone in Iran in recent memory, if ever under the Islamic Republic. Israel, on the other hand, has had a series of successful assassinations against nuclear scientists in Iran, and as well as other operations inside Iran. In terms of opportunity, we should look at the geopolitical context because Israel is said to be behind other recent major assassinations, including the immediate assassination of Sohar in the major Lebanese Hezbollah leader, who is also part of some of the leading operations, and this happened right before the assassination, and this happened after rumors leaked after Netanyahu's return to Israel from the US that Israel would be targeting all of the proxies to upend the order of the events in the Middle East after the deadly Hezbollah attack on a Druze village, which led to the deaths of 13 children, and which followed numerous attacks escalating the crisis in the Middle East. Houthis planning an attack inside Israel, Hezbollah increasingly escalating and now killing mass civilians and creating a major problem with the Jews, and of course Hamas continuing threats and its activity and rocket fire and so forth. So after these rumors leaked out, this was expected, this series of attacks on senior leadership following the model of attacking by now and killing now 500 Hezbollah commanders. This was not anything that should be particularly surprising. This is exactly the sort of thing that can be expected after certain red lines have been crossed.
Right. Irina, one final question. You are in United States. You belong to Ukraine, born in Ukraine, if I'm not wrong, and moved to United States here. There is a war going on between Russia and Ukraine as well. United States has been giving support to Ukraine. This time around for Israel, United States again is there as big brother, as it is known about. How safe and how relevant do you think United States is amid these two wars, especially with an election at hand?
I think there's definitely a plan to try to disrupt not only the elections, but to cause damage in the United States as much as possible. There's been recent foiled attempt by Iran to try to assassinate Donald Trump again after previous failed attempt to assassinate a number of his officials. There's been suspicious deaths by Russian ex-officials, dissidents,
Yes.
and FBI informants inside the US, and of course, numerous active measures of various sorts and propaganda efforts. More recently, we are seeing Iranians being involved in civil unrest on campuses, as well as Russian and Chinese election meddling and polarization efforts. All of this seems to be part of a growing network of interests. We have seen recently that the Ukrainian for External Intelligence Service struck a Russian base in Syria. And what was happening there that is of significance to both crises? Of course, Russian troops are in Ukraine, but they have also been moving closer to the northern border of the Golan Heights annexed by Israel, and presenting an immediate danger to Israel. And they've been apparently coordinating this military activity with the Iranian gestures by RGC, by various militias in Syria and Iraq. And so we are seeing these interests, which were previously appeared to be separate, or at least Israel treated them as separate, and becoming increasingly integrated. So we are seeing that Iran is increasingly open in coordinating with other countries, and other countries are also increasingly open in admitting that their interests are not only localized but globalized.
Right. Irina, thank you so much for speaking to us. It was Irina Sukerman, U.S. National Security and Geopolitical Analyst, fellow at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, and also a fellow at the Arabian Peninsula Institute. Irina, thank you so much. I wish you a very good day, and we hope to see you more on One India.
Absolutely, would be happy to do so, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to this yet another special broadcast on the assassination of Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh. And trust me, the dust hasn't settled yet, and how and why it would be. Possible ramifications from Iran on the cards. Hezbollah's response has already started. How would Israel look at it? And above all, how would United States respond to it in view of the impending elections there? The all-important fight between the Republicans and the Democrats. To discuss that further, this time around, we have brought you voices from Israel, we have brought you voices from the US, UK, Ehsan Safarnejad, an Iranian geopolitical analyst, joins us all the way from Iran itself, from the southern part of Iran. Ehsan, thank you so much for speaking to One India, brother.
Thanks for inviting.
Thank you. Ehsan, the first thing that comes to everyone's mind, especially in this part of the world, and I'm sure elsewhere as well, how was Ismail Haniyeh assassinated, first of all, and what exactly transpired during that incident?
The details, the exact details are still unknown. But we know that he was in a compound that is related, has some sort of link to IRGC, because they are responsible for protecting the leaders of other countries, other organizations who come to Iran. So this was that building. There are theories being thrown around. There are a couple of them that we can actually rule out. For example, the ludicrous assertion by some accounts online, unknown accounts, I should say, that F-35s have been flown into Iranian airspace. We can safely say that that wasn't the case. We have seen the image of the debris in the building, and well, we know that based on the damage that has been done to that building, that most likely the damage was done due to use of a small loitering munition with very small explosive warhead, probably no more than 5 to 7 kilogram of explosive material. There are theories that are going around about the specific type of ammunition that was used, but this is the general understanding of us as of right now about how the assassination was carried out.
Absolutely. Even the morning newspapers here in India, if I may speak for this part of the world, have only today come up with theories that there was a bomb that was placed there 2 months ago, and then it was detonated. Lots of theories going around. No pictures, Ehsan, coming out of Iran and that deadly attack that happened. Any specific reason? Does Tehran want to keep it under the wraps?
Well, obviously, this is a safe house, and you're not going to basically broadcast and show the inside vicinity of a building that is considered a safe house. But we do actually have the image, a very long shot, a landscape sort of imagery of the overall damage that has been done to the building. So we know what has happened again, and based on that picture, I'm saying that the damage that was done was very small, right? But it was a very precise attack, right? And we know that it was only Mr. Ismail Haniyeh and his bodyguard who were assassinated. So based on these informations, we know that the attack was small. We know that there was not much damage being done to the building. And again, if people expect the image from the interior of the building, this is not going to happen. Again, this is a semi-military base / safe house. The images will never come out from inside the building. From the outside of the building, we have the images.
Right. Ehsan, who stands to gain from this assassination the most? Who stands to gain the most?
I would say nobody, actually, because I mean, this is the analysis. This is my assessment that Israel wouldn't gain something from this. This is a very surface level winning for Israel. Let me explain myself. There were 3 assassinations being carried out in the region. One was the assassination of Mr. Haniyeh, which you have invited me to discuss, right? And then we had the assassination of Hezbollah major and senior military commander, Mr. Fuad Shukri, yes, in Beirut. This person was in contact with Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, every few hours in Lebanon, which goes to show you how important of a person he was. And then we had the assassination of Abu Hassan Maliki from a top commander in Iraq by United States. He was the commander of Kitab Sayyid al-Shuhada. So out of these 3 figures, based on what is going to take place on the ground and how much it infects what's taking place on the ground between the soldiers, the kind of military operations that are going to take place, I would say that the assassination of Mr. Haniyeh had the least impact, right? But again, this for Israel has become some sort of excuse in order to make up for their failure of, for example, assassinating Mr. Muhammad al-Dhaif. If they were able to do that, it would have been a huge victory. The mastermind, the brilliant commander, and the head of the military wing of Hamas, Mr. Muhammad al-Dhaif, that assassination would have entailed so much, right? The commander who devised the plan for October 7th, that would have been a real victory. It would have been still considered a tactical victory, right? It wouldn't have been a strategic victory for Israel, but it would have been a major one, right? but they failed to do that. Now, I go one person down the list of top most important people to be assassinated. You have Mr. Yahya Sinwar. They were unable to do that. And they have constantly made the claims that they were trying to assassinate. These claims are coming from Israeli side, right? So we understand that they have failed. And in their failure, they have reached out to grab and I'm sorry to put it this way, I don't mean to disrespect Mr. Haniyeh, but the low-hanging fruit. What they have done is to take the low-hanging fruit. And obviously, if Iranian response would be a substantial one, I say this very strongly.
Yes.
The previous time, the Iranian general, Mr. Salami, the head of IRGC, conducted an interview. And in that interview, he said, we decided to establish a new equation, right? So the previous time Iran introduced a precedent, right? Now, after April 14th, we are living in a world that Iran has already carried out an attack on Israel, losing hundreds of drones and missiles. Now, post April 14th, we have only one incident of that attack. If it happens another time, then we don't have just a precedent. We have a new norm that, maybe people would be desensitized to the new developments into the region. So I would actually say that if this happens, then that means that the intelligence apparatus in Israel has actually failed in order to assess the escalation and manage it properly, and they actually have failed. And so far, by the for example, by the situation with the Tel Aviv stock market and the fact that it's a very bearish stock market as of right now, the price of the stocks are decreasing. I would say to a certain extent, it has already begun to show itself as a failure.
Right. Ehsan, it all started as the retaliation, as the revenge to the October 7 attack. And from October 7, 300 days later, we are here. Now, an emissary, a representative of a different country is killed on Iranian soil. We have seen the flag of revenge also flying high in Iran. How far would Iran go, in your opinion, to respond to this crisis militarily?
Okay, so first I would like to assert that, this didn't actually took place and started after the October 7th. Palestinians have been going through a systematic, oppression throughout, almost 8 decades right now, right? And there are United Nations resolutions that mandates that Israel should, for example, Resolution 242 talks about how Israel should evacuate the illegal settlements that were built in West Bank, right? So it happened from the Nakba. It started from Nakba. The Israelis started this. But going back to your main question, the core of the question, this time around, we know that the retaliation will be, much more forceful in comparison to what happened in April 14th. This is going to be a more serious one. The Iranian leader is very careful with the way that he chooses his words. So, for example, he has used the terms in order to describe the Iranian revenge previously as a slap of punishment, an act of revenge, right? This time he has used the term khunkahi. Khunkahi is a very difficult word in order to translate into English, but it basically means to take revenge for the blood that has been shed. In the costume of Iranians, in some regions, in also other regions in Middle East. The way that you avenge the blood that has been shed, khunkhahi, is through actually very, very severe form of punishment, which would equate the kind of thing that has been done. Namely, there was an assassination. There is not going to be an assassination. There's going to be a response. But in that response, it's not just going to be limited to damaging the properties of the military bases in Israel. It's going to be a more serious one, including maybe the lives of the commanders, senior commanders inside Israel. So that's the first part. We know that Iran will most likely launch missiles from within the Iranian borders, like April 14th. But there are a couple of ways that Iran actually can ramp up its escalation. For example, previous time, Iranian side sent a message to Israel through the mediators, and because the two countries obviously don't have any direct contact with one another, but they said that they are going to strike Israel in the next 72 hours. They can refrain from doing so, which would take away Israelis' ability in order to defend its airspace. They can use more serious weapons. As of right now, the word on the street amongst the analysts is that they have prepared a very particular missile that has a capability in order to maneuver. People might recall in April 14th, there was a missile that maneuvered at a period of time before the moment of impact. It caught the attention of the military analysts around the world. I have heard that they have prepared, multiple silos of roughly around 100 silos of those missiles, which means that the attacks might actually be so important. The targets might be so important that there is a need for Israel to locate and place an air defense system, near them in order to protect them. And Israel is, Iran is determined to target those areas. Obviously, we still don't know what's going to take place exactly, but I like to wrap the answer to this question up with this final statement by the Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council that said that the attack of retaliation for this, apart from Iran carrying out its operation, will come from different fronts. And we obviously, as I mentioned in response to your previous question, Hezbollah already has a reason in order to retaliate against Israel. Hashd al-Sha'bi in Iraq, they also have a reason, and Yemen's Ansar Allah still hasn't responded to the explosion in the port of Al-Hodaydah, which they will most likely respond to. So I would say that the next couple of weeks is going to be very hard for Israelis to deal with the situation.
Absolutely, Hassan. The way you have mentioned several quarters which are ready and which have legitimate reasons in their right to hit back at Israel is something that paints a picture that this particular conflict/war won't be limited to the particular region. One partner of Israel, which is watching the whole episode unfold, is United States. How does Iran view the role of United States vis-a-vis this Israeli aggression, Israeli war against Hamas?
Well, one thing that many analysts inside Iran are saying now is that the Israeli regime didn't do it on its own. This wasn't an independent act by Israel. Obviously, the assassination of Abu Hassan Maliki in Iraq was a direct action that was carried out by United States. So in that instance, it was solely United States to blame for. But many believe that Netanyahu received the permission in order to carry out such a strike when he went into US Congress, and after all the massacre, the genocide that's taking place in Palestine, the things that are publicly being said by the cyber sort of army, the troll farms of the Zionist regime that are talking about legitimization of sexual violence against the prisoners of war, and the things that actually United States has stated about violation of the prisoners' rights inside the Zionist regime. When after all of these things, he went into the Congress and he gave a speech, and in that speech he talked about how fighting Hamas is fighting Iran, how fighting Yemen's Ansarullah is fighting Iran, how fighting Hezbollah is fighting Iran, and how fighting Iran is fighting the enemy of United States, the most important enemy of United States. And the representative of the Congress, they actually gave him a standing ovation. So he, in a way, he received the permission in order to carry out this series of strikes in different countries. So that's the way that Iran has seen the actions of Israel. And obviously in Iran, there is always that cognizance about the way and the relations between Israel and United States, the constant and annual monetary aid that is sent into Israel, and the political link between the two capitals, Tel Aviv and Washington, D.C. So that's the way that we view it. But from the statements of the Iranian commandos, we understand that the political brass, the military brass in Iran, they actually care very little about the threats that are coming out of United States. And we consider this as a security threat for Iran that, if not answered to in a very substantial form of military retaliation, then it would undermine the Iranian sovereignty. So there is no doubt that the response will come. And if United States gets involved, they should understand that their interest in the region, the series of military bases that they have inside the region, the oil that they are stealing currently in the eastern side of Syria, the places of intelligence gathering that they have in Iraq, in different countries and other countries of the region, these are all potential legitimate targets for Iran if they choose to intervene in Iran's right under the international law to carry out the retaliation against a country that has violated Iran's sovereignty.
Yes, and very clearly put, and really appreciate your insights on the stand of Iran in these testing times. Ehsan, in this part of the world, in India and in the Middle Eastern side, the word Ehsan carries a lot of meaning. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ehsan would mean a favor without asking for anything in return. To me,
yes,
being a student of literature also, Ehsan also means forgiveness, I would say, to a certain extent. Any scope of forgiveness, peace, tranquility in this whole scenario of chaos that we are seeing from any side, from every side?
Well, I would say that obviously from the side that is carrying out the genocide and talking about how they are willing in order to carry out atrocious crimes on the international level, violating all the different articles of Geneva Convention. I would say that it is most unlikely to come from that side. But we have in Iranian literature, which I hope that you would appreciate. It says tarahum bar palang tiz dandan jafakari bovad bar gusfandan, which means that if you show mercy to an aggressive tiger, aggressive wolf, then you are oppressing and undermining the rights of the sheep. So, understand, this is the Iranian culture. The Iranian culture doesn't equate and make a synonymous link between mercy and cowardice. Because if you show that you are not willing to put up a good fight for the right cause, then it is not the mercy that you're showing. It is a sign of your cowardice. And if Iran has shown anything in the last 4 decades that it has been established, is that we are anything but coward. We fought against Saddam's regime for 8 years. We fought alongside our brothers in Syria. We fought alongside our brothers in Iraq. And we helped a lot of people, liberated a lot of people from the rule of Daesh, ISIS, that was killing, murdering innocent civilians. We protected the Christians in Syria, in Iraq. We helped the minorities that were being discriminated and killed by the extremist forces of the fundamentalist ISIS forces, ISIS terrorists. And we have always shown that we are dedicated to good fight for the right cause.
Ehsan Safarnejad, thank you so much for putting Iran's viewpoint, your own viewpoint, in no uncertain terms. And I'm sure the world would take note of it. And before the matter escalates further, there is a stop, we all wish, to this once and for all. Thank you, Ehsan, for speaking to Oneindia.
Again, thanks for inviting me. I hope that your viewers would, have a more firm understanding of the situation right now.
Indeed, indeed. And there are always 2 to 3 sides of a story, and the world should know the Iranian viewpoint also from the Iranian perspective. And that's why you came in. We really appreciate your time and candor here. And as would be, there are so many countries, including India, that has been the victim of this proxy war going on, of this interpretations and misinterpretations. So I think in the democratic right of any country, this is what it is to be done. Thank you, Ehsan, for speaking to us.
Don't miss out. Follow Oneindia for real-time updates.